What's up guys, ZiSotto here, and today we're doing the patch notes review for patch 4.11, Code of Chivalry. This is the release patch of Cu Chulainn, and Cu Chulainn is by far the biggest part of this patch in regards to any change really, because there are some minor balance tweaks, but the changes probably that are considered to be done later down the road will be delayed until after DreamHack, which is understandable, so the pros have something that they've already practiced on. And therefore balance changes are relatively minor, aside of the new god, who will probably not be playable as far as I know. So we'll talk about the changes here in depth. We also have some extra numbers, thankfully, thanks to some viewers and thanks to Capslock and Ajax. We have some extra info here that we can use and talk a little bit more about this god. We will start with the god and then go into the rest. First of all, let's look at his card art. We have his card art one panel further. This is his original card art for his default model. You can already tell from this that he basically has two stances, and we'll go into that in detail. And this is his recolor, which I personally like better. It has this kind of like young Witcher style to it, and I really enjoy that. But both look pretty cool. And now let's look at this guy. The god is the Hound of Ulster. Very interesting, slightly strange background story. We'll not concern ourselves with that here. We look into the balance, and that is gonna start with his passive. This passive is Beserk. And Beserk is already pretty loaded with a lot of things. First of all, his mana bar functions different from other gods. He has up to 100 mana. It's basically a bar of rage, if you're familiar with the rage system from warriors in World of Warcraft, for example. He gets up to 100 mana, but only regenerates up to 25 mana, and then stays at 25. And then hitting enemies with abilities or attacks or I think taking damage as well, as far as I understand it. Yes, allies or himself taking damage will allow him to get mana. So you're gonna be in a lot of back and forth fighting to get up your mana, and therefore basically have to play aggressive at most times. If you reach 85 mana for more than 3 seconds, you will go Berserk, and that's where the second form comes in. And when you go Berserk, you basically have a whole set of new abilities. So they are similar abilities to the ones that you usually have, but they have different extra effects, and that goes for his whole kit except for his 2, and I explain that all in detail. There are some extra factors to be considered here. He cannot get any extra mana through items, for example, and that's kind of important in the whole context of this. But instead, he gets a 10% health conversion, as far as I know, for both mana and MP5. So if you get 100 mana, you will get 100 extra health. Can be beneficial on certain items. If you think about some items just have mana that you don't make that much use of otherwise, and you can really look for some, well, more strange builds where it will somehow help you. But in general, you have to keep in mind that a 10-to-1 conversion means that it's not all that effective to go heavily into mana, because realistically you will still need 1000 mana to get 100 health, and he has no base mana to work with. His Beserk, the one that he reaches after reaching 85 mana for 3 seconds, lasts for 20 seconds. And in the Beserk form, he gets bonus health, that's 40 plus 23 per level, and he gets bonus power 5 plus 2 per level. So quite a lot of extra stats here as well. Obviously something that makes him more prone to things like Soul Reaver Kins or whatever, as soon as he has reached that Beserk stance. And outside of that, obviously, he also deals more damage there, so you have to be really careful with that. And this stance swap resets all his cooldowns. It doesn't reset them every time, so if you go Berserk again after you went Berserk once within the cooldown of your ultimate, for example, you will not have a reset on that, but they basically have completely separate cooldowns from each other. And kind of think like Tyr's stance swap. Only that he doesn't need an ability for it. And with that, let's go into the abilities. We actually have the numbers for them already as well. You can't see them here, but I have them right next to me, and I will talk about them as well. So, his first ability is Barbed Spear. Cu Chulainn thrusts his spear forward, damaging all enemies in front of him and stunning less powerful minions. So, just minions, not players. Successfully hitting an enemy with this ability restores 6 mana to a maximum of 18, so a max of 3 enemies. Barbs from his spear stick in opponents and reduce their healing taken for 4 seconds. This healing reduction is 40%. In Beserk form, Cu Chulainn instead slams his massive arms down, damaging and rooting all enemies in front of him. The stun on minions lasts for 2 seconds, the root on everyone lasts for 1 second. The damage of this ability goes from 75 to 315 in both stances. Unfortunately, I don't have the scalings yet. The cooldown starts at 16 and then goes down to 12 seconds. So this is probably your primary poke clear ability that you want to level in order to get the cooldown lower and get your rage up reliably. The second ability is called Vent Anger. Vent Anger is basically mystical male in physical form. He gets, he vents his anger as superheated steam, increasing his movement speed by 10%, and he drains ferocity, so if you use this, you're actually gonna lose some of your mana. So this ability is something you really just want to use in specific situations, because different from the other abilities, it doesn't give you mana back either. And every 0.5 seconds, you will deal tick damage to enemies, starting at 10 and going up to 30 on a 6-second cooldown. Very low cooldown, you can very often use this if you have sufficient rage. His 3 is called Simon's Leap, or Furious Charge if you reach the ultimate stance. This ability is primarily a leap, a relatively short leap, but a leap that has like a line attack attached to it. So it's a circle radius with a line in front of it where he hits down with a spear. And yeah, well, the description is like that. Leaping to attack a location and slamming it down to damage enemies in front of him. Successfully hitting an enemy with this ability stores 6 ferocity once again, so up to 18 again, same as the 1. His Beserk form Cu Chulainn instead charges forward, damaging and driving all enemies back with him. So his Beserk form is pretty much Hercules 1. It looks the same, it feels the same, I think. It might have a slightly different delay, but for all intents and purposes, it's in the same segment, whereas the other part is more of a safer damaging poke escape tool. Damage here starts at 65 and goes up to 285, so close to the 1, but not quite there. Cooldown is 16 seconds. His ultimate is Spear of Mortal Pain, or Warcry. We went away from the previous name, Gay Bulk. And this ability is Cu Chulainn swings his spear in a circle around him, damaging and knocking up all enemies. Successfully hitting an enemy with his abilities restores 12 ferocity, up to a maximum of 36. That is quite a lot more than his other abilities, if you keep that in mind. If you have that base value of 25 already, then this can bring you up to 61 right away. So you just need like 1 or 2 more abilities on some basics or take some damage after to get to the full stacks. This ability deals different damage in normal and Beserk form. In normal form, it's 175 to 475. Whereas the Beserk form has 100 to 360. This is very understandable, otherwise it would be massive amounts of damage between his 2 ults if you use them right after each other. It's still a high amount of damage anyways. There's something in the description of the ability about a 30-second slow. I'm not quite sure, this has probably been taken out, because it has a knock-up now, and it has something which is like a tremble, a Cabrakan tremble now in his other ult form. So if you hit him in the normal form with a spear, it's a knock-up, and if you go into his Beserk stage, it's a tremble, which only lasts very briefly, though. 1 second tremble is not that much. Consider that Cabrakan can basically tremble you for forever if you stand in it and he has enough mana. Cooldown here is 90 seconds, but like I said, you can use both if you get the reset. It's hard to say how this character will play at this point, because we especially don't have the scalings yet as well. But what I can say is I see a lot of potential in going to a point of very high ferocity, very high mana, and then blowing your whole ability into an enemy, and then getting the reset through the ultimate and blowing your whole kit into an enemy again. That has massive potential, and I can very much see that working. And I can see that working not only in solo, but also in the jungle, because he doesn't use mana for clearing, which is a nice benefit in the first place, and he will also then be able to have very, very unexpected brutal ganks. The only downside is that his CC is only in his ultimate until you go into his Beserk form. He does have very interesting interactions with specific items that we have to check in game, basically. Like, for example, which items give you extra anger through certain effects, like think Bluestone or Ferocity, or for example, what happens if you use Meditation, which restores mana, versus what happens if you use Bracer, because in theory he uses mana as well, and that can be restored, but does it apply for him because he has this Beserk stance, and all these kind of things that really have to be tested first. But overall, very, very interesting kid. I'm very excited to try him out, and I want to see in which direction he goes. He could easily end up on the stronger side, though, I will say that. Obviously, it always depends on the values in the end, but the base damage values are good enough for him to have a lot of potential. Vent Anger doesn't do that much. It's more like a, you know, chase down someone or something ability, but the rest really shows that he has potential. And with that, let us jump into all these new skins. There's a whole event coming up. We'll talk about that in just a second. Obviously, that has a lot of skins coming with it. We have an Anubis skin. We have, unfortunately, not that visible Odin skin here. Unfortunately, they don't really have the new colors yet. They'll come soon. It looks pretty cool, though. We have a Tur skin. Yes, the skin has wings, both when you back and when you land from backing, which looks really cool. And in his ultimate. So, pretty dope. Generally, a very close resemblance to our Kwang here. Then you have an Osiris skin. This is the White Knight version. Has an axe, actually, which you can see down here. And there is the Black Knight version with a boar on his shoulder and, well, the darker design and a Lord Buckethead helmet. So, both pretty cool in my opinion, and they all tie into this event. This is our new 4th of July skin. This is the Nox Liberty skin, which I think looks really cool. Has nice sound effects partially, but the walking sound is really annoying. And has very strange effects that are very harsh on the eyes that I hope will get changed when the, well, past PTS, because if you remember Voodoo Nox, she had some weird effects at first that really felt strange while looking at them and hurt some people's eyes, and this skin has them all over again, and I hope we get a fix for that. And then we have Camazotz tier 2, which we cannot see much of here, but it's actually really amazing. It's basically Camazotz in blue with a skull mask. One of my favorite tier 2s now, if not one of my favorite skins in the game. Kind of regret buying that Stone Gargoyle, because this one just looks so much better. One of the more amazing tier 2s out there. Then we have Daji Mastery skins, golden here, but I think the Legendary just looks amazing. The tails of Legendary look really, really cool. We have the Mastery skins for Nox, which... I mean, yeah, she shows a little bit of skin, and that is changed, I guess. But, you know, it was kind of needed there. And we have Osiris, which just... I feel like the blue and gold doesn't match with his green face. He looks a little bit like a sick old man. But, oh well. With that, down to the bundle, hopefully. We get some new emotes here. Clap, Cu Chulainn, Wave, and Osiris Dance, and Nox Dance. And this is the event I'm talking about, called of Chivalry. Help me, I can't pronounce this. And this gives you immediate access to the event, to the Tur skin, to the Fire Giant Ward, and to the Chivalry loading frame. But over time, throughout the event, you get all the other rewards. If you don't finish the event, you'll get them at the end of the split, but you can get them early if you finish the quest. It's the Anubis skin, it's the Odin skin, it's the Osiris skin, both of them actually. You can choose whichever one you get first by being either good or bad in regards to the quest. It's very straightforward, you just choose a good or bad quest, kind of Fable style maybe. And you get a loading screen and a music theme. And you also, which is not in here, get 3 chests. I think at least 1 Enigma chest, and I'm not quite sure what the other 2 are. But you get chests for more skins on top of that. It does have a pretty hefty price tag of 1,200 gems. So if you're just looking for one specific skin, may not be worth it. Pretty expensive for that. If you're interested in multiple of the skins and maybe the chest rolls as well, I think it's overall it's pretty fair because you get a lot of skins out of this, and if you were to buy them individually, a single skin of these would probably be 600 already. So, you know, ups and downs. Depends on how much you generally like to spend on Smite or not. But yeah, that's that bundle, and I personally think it's a pretty cool one. Then there's a little notification that you get now if you don't accept a quest, and there are quests that you can accept before going into a queue. Bug fixes for Bakos, just a visual fix for his armpits. Mercury gets an audio fix, and that brings us to the item changes. And this is a big one. This is a very big one. Now, Gauntlet of Thebes shouldn't surprise anyone who's like very involved in support play, because pretty much any support player would pretty much always get Gauntlet of Thebes because there was really no reason not to. The item was, even after its first nerf, still very, very good. And it will probably still be good. It now has 300 health instead of 350, but it still gives an aura with 15 protections each. It's not that great for the support himself anymore, but 15 protections each is still very nice to counter out a lot of damage. Changed specifically, for DreamHack, pretty much, because, you know, the pros were saying it was too strong, and so it gets nerfed. Sovereignty, though, this is the more surprising one. Sovereignty gets a nerf as well. It gets an aura nerf from the physical protection aura from 30 to 15. This is pretty crucial because that means that a lot of players will depend more on themselves again for building protection than those auras. If you had the combined auras before, and we talked about 50 protections, now we're talking about 30 protections. A single flat pen item can have 20 protection reduction, 20 penetration. Stone Cutting Sword can have 30 protection reduction, so you can negate both of these auras at once now. Heavy hit for sovereignty. Compensation is an increase of physical protection for the wearer, for the user, up to 40. But it still loses 5 overall. Even the support who builds this will have 5 less protections than before. Not quite sure why it didn't get 45, so the support doesn't lose anything. Obviously, maybe pointing in the direction that otherwise everyone would just pick up sovereignty first again, because it's now more potent in most scenarios, and we don't have so many magical carries in the meta right now. Well, there's Sol, but you know what I mean. But in the end, I am surprised. I'm surprised that Sov got hit so heavily. Hardware did not get hit, which is not surprising because hardware was picked up a lot less because it's often not as necessary as the other 2 items. This will probably put supports in a bit of a weird place where they have to make decisions regarding where they want to go with what they want to do. Shifter's Shield. Price increased by 150. Who cares? This item is so good. It's still so friggin' good that I don't see much of a reason not to build it because of 150 gold. Alright. That's one less sentry for the team. Still very high power, still probably better ability-wise than many other items, and I'm willing to sacrifice a little more gold for that. And that brings us to the god changes. Only minor changes, like I said, for the most part here. Daji, Paolao gets lending targeter fixes, basically, just so you jump off quicker, that's it. Fafnir gets a nerf. Curse Strength, this is probably the heaviest nerf this patch. The slow went up from 20 to 40% and is now 20 at all ranks. And that's heavy. That is very heavy. That's a massive, drastic change to what he does, how he functions, everything. Because it makes it much more so that he has to rely on the stun of his hammer and will not impact the rest of the team as much, because the slow aura was pretty big, you know. And this will take away a lot of his control in like team fights, especially, where, you know, people originally thought that he suffered until everyone realized how crazy his slow is. So, very big impact for especially the competitive scene here. And then Ganesha. Ganesha gets a buff. The pillar slow went from 20 to 40%, and now is 35% at all ranks. Pretty solid buff. Makes it more worth to use the ultimate. Makes it a little less worth to put points in the ultimate, maybe, depending. But I feel like you still kind of want to, because, you know, it's his biggest team fight ability. So, yeah. That will maybe change his place, but he's not terrible as it is anyways. He got a nerf before, remember, because he had to get some help, or some not so much help with his clear against objective by putting his ultimate line on them. So yeah, Ganesh probably maybe being picked up a little more now, even though he was banned and picked up quite a lot beforehand already. And last but not least, we have Nemesis. Mid-season patch will probably get more changes for her, because at the moment she's picked a lot of in competitive. She's performing very well there, or just very highly valued pick, especially with Thunder now being nerfed. You know, you can use Nemesis instead. But Hyris wants to take away a little bit from being an ult bot as much in the first place. This is just the beginning, so basically, and the change here is to reduce the power gains and power lost of Scales of Fate from 6% to 5%. Minor change overall, I would say. Not that dramatic. Yes, percentages always means something here, but it's not going to kill her. It's not going to change how she's played or anything. And that's it for these patch notes. Quite a fair bit to go through, but most of it was really just Cu Chulainn. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much for watching. If you're not subscribed yet, feel free to click that sub button and maybe the bell. It really helps me out. Other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow or later today, because we're actually going to look at Cu Chulainn very soon if the PTS goes up. Duke Sloth, out.